Story of a man whose name is basically a synonym for loyalty and just raw, unbelievable power. We're talking about Dian Wei, the immortal bodyguard. Now, this quote, it comes from one of the most powerful and ruthless warlords of the entire era, Cao Cao. And get this, he said it right after a battle where he lost his own son, his nephew, and his bodyguard. But it was the bodyguard, Dian Wei, that he grieved for the most. Just think about that.
So that just begs the question, right? Who was this guy? What kind of person inspires a warlord to mourn him more than his own flesh and blood? Well, to figure that out, we've got to go back to the beginning, way before he was anyone's soldier. Yeah, before he ever wore a uniform, Dian Wei was all about pure brute strength. He was a product of his time, a really chaotic, lawless period in history. To really get him, you have to understand this idea of the yuxia. Think of it like a vigilante, a knight-errant, or even a ronin from Japanese stories. These were guys who operated outside the law, living by their own code of justice. And that often meant, well, it meant violence. And Dian Wei's first big claim to fame, it was a textbook yuxia move. I mean, the nerve of this guy is just incredible. He doesn't sneak in at night. No, he rolls up in a carriage in broad daylight, walks right through the front gate, kills the guy and his wife, and then just calmly walks out. The records say hundreds of people were there, just watching, but they were so terrified that not a single person tried to stop him. That one act created his entire reputation for pure intimidation. And of course, that intimidation was backed up by some seriously superhuman strength. His main weapons? A pair of twin halberds that weighed 80 jin. To put that in perspective for you, that's almost 90 pounds, or about 40 kilograms. Can you imagine? The soldiers in the army even had a little chant about him, something like, "In our camp, we've got the warrior Dian swinging a pair of halberds weighing 80 jin." The guy was a living legend. And the stories about his strength are just wild. There's this one famous tale where a massive military banner is flapping around in a crazy windstorm, and it's taking a bunch of guys just to keep it from flying away. Dian Wei just strolls over, grabs it with one hand, and holds it perfectly still against the wind. It's that kind of stuff, that raw power, that really got people's attention. But here's the thing. Being the strongest guy in the room doesn't automatically make you a legendary bodyguard. Dian Wei had to prove he was more than just muscle. He needed to show he had discipline, that he was smart. And his big audition for Cao Cao? That came at the Battle of Puyang. So picture the scene. Cao Cao's army is in deep trouble, about to get run over by a cavalry charge from the enemy warlord, Lu Bu. Dian Wei is right at the front line with just a few guys. As this wall of horses and steel thunders toward them, he's totally calm. He just tells his men, "Let me know when they're 10 paces out." They yell the warning, and he does nothing. He just waits. Then he says, "Okay, now tell me when they're 5 paces away." Can you imagine the guts that takes? 5 paces. That is practically breathing distance. The second his men scream 5 paces, he finally moves, unleashing a volley of short-throwing halberds, and every single one finds its mark. An enemy soldier drops with each throw. The whole enemy charge just falls apart. See? That wasn't just about being strong or accurate. That was a masterclass in timing and battlefield cool. By single-handedly saving his lord, Dian Wei proved he wasn't just a brute. He was a tactician with ice in his veins. And just like that, he landed the most critical job in the entire army, Cao Cao's personal bodyguard. Cao Cao was so blown away, he started calling him my Eli. Now, that might not mean much to us, but back then, whoa. Eli was this legendary, almost mythological bodyguard from the ancient Shang dynasty, famous for his insane strength and loyalty. For Cao Cao to say that, it was basically the highest compliment you could possibly get. And Dian Wei was about to prove he deserved that legendary name in his final defining moment, the battle that would make him immortal. The whole tragedy really was set up by a huge mistake from Cao Cao himself. He just accepted the surrender of another warlord, Zhongxiu. But then Cao Cao does something incredibly foolish. He takes Zhongxiu's widowed aunt as a concubine, which was a massive public humiliation. So of course, Zhongxiu plots a surprise attack. And what's his first move? Take out the biggest threat. His men get Dian Wei drunk and steal those famous twin halberds. So when the attack kicks off, it's total chaos. Cao Cao is caught completely off guard, unarmed, and has to literally run for his life. Dian Wei, with maybe a dozen of his guys, plants himself at the main gate. He has one job and one job only: hold back an entire army to buy his boss a few seconds to get away.
He's fighting like a demon, but eventually his own longsword just snaps from the sheer strain. Now he's unarmed, surrounded. And what does he do? The historical records say he does something you'd only see in a movie. He grabs two enemy soldiers and literally uses them as weapons, swinging their bodies around to kill other attackers. It's just unbelievable.
He takes wound after wound, dozens of them, but he just will not go down. The accounts say he died standing up, still glaring at the enemy with so much rage that even after he was dead, none of the soldiers dared to get close to his body. And his sacrifice? It worked. Cao Cao got away. So Dian Wei's death was obviously a huge tragedy, but it's what happened after that that really shows us how important he was. It all comes down to Cao Cao's reaction, which was, well, it was really complex. You see, Cao Cao's grief was two-sided. On one hand, it was absolutely driven by a deep personal guilt. He knew this was his fault. His actions caused the attack. But on the other hand, it was also a masterful piece of politics. By mourning his bodyguard more than his own son, he sent a crystal-clear message to every single soldier in his army. Loyalty to me is the single most valuable thing you can offer. And you know what's crazy? The true story is so incredible, it hardly needs to be exaggerated. Sure, the famous novel, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, adds some Hollywood flair, like having him chase a tiger across a river. But the core of his story, the history, that part about the tactical genius, the insane bravery, and the ultimate sacrifice, that's all real. So in the end, Dian Wei's life really comes full circle, doesn't it? He goes from this violent lone wolf vigilante to the absolute symbol of a loyal protector. And his story really makes you wonder, what's the ultimate measure of loyalty? Is it a lifetime of faithful service, or is it that one single moment of absolute sacrifice?